Hello, this is Christophe Clermont from EFI again, and in this tutorial I want to actually continue from where we have left with our first repeater tutorial, where we have built this nice view where we can browse through all the events and see the seeds here. We can also create new events and we can search events, we can change how many events we want to see per page, and we can page through the events. So all this is fine. Now let's have a look in how to edit an event. So what we as a developer call the master detail view. So master will be the list of all the events. So what I want to achieve, I want to select an event and then edit the details of this event. The way how to achieve that is what we will cover now. And to do that properly and have a little bit nicer view, I actually wanted to clean this a little bit up so that it gets smaller, so we only have a list where we can select our certain events. What I will do is I will remove the seeds here from the list, and the delete record button, I will change the button style to something smaller, and then even the caption from delete we could simply change to an X. So let's do this. And in the list itself here, we can go to 2 columns, and the second column, we will give it only 40 pixels. Yeah, it now takes up much less space. To be able to select one of these items, we need a button again. And this button has a special mode, which is select. So we take a button, we go to select record, and then we can of course use the title as caption as well. We also could move the title into the bottom, which is possible. By the way, that's many times people were asking how can make an image clickable, and like with normal items, so is it with the advanced data wraps, you can always drag things into it, and then the button will actually host this content or an image or a group, whatever could be in a button. Design wise, it's easier to just use the title here, and it gets a little bit small, so let's place this in column 1, and then we have the delete thing here, and I will assign the list button style as well. So that's my list now. Now I'm able to select certain fields here. Actually, I'm also be able to track which item is selected, and even if you don't need this, I will just introduce that now or do it so that you get a little bit more an idea about what happens behind the scenes. So let me put a caption in here, and let's say in this caption selected event ID, and put an equal, and then we can actually go for the root. And there we see our event sessions again, where we already talked about. And so we have a selected ID. And what's actually happening is that this button is setting the selected ID. It's now number 3, it's number 92, it's 94. To be able to track that ID or to see that this is the correct one, let me just, in the button caption here, let me just add the ID. So of course, it's the XMedia ID. So we see that these are the IDs, and when we click on that, they are actually selected. So this $root r_event session selected ID is actually the selected ID. And we can do whatever we want. We can output that, we can actually filter for it, but to make our life easier, there's already something built in. So when we take another repeater and I put it beside my list here, and actually to do that in a proper layout, I will also add another table and put the both in here. In this table, I will put 2 columns, maybe 1 column on mobile, and the 2 columns equal size. We can make maybe the first column a little bit smaller, and the second one takes up the space. And these both guys are actually placed into the grid, so that looks fine. So let's have a look at the second repeater. I will select the same data relation, the event sessions, because we only have one data relation here. So here we have the condition type, and the condition type is something that it's a dynamic filter applied in the front end. So when the data is loaded, we can actually filter. With search, we were actually using server loading, which makes much more sense, but we also can have client-side filtering. And one of the predefined filters is selected record, which does nothing more than creating a filter and say, please look for my XMedia ID equals the selected event ID. And if this is the case, then I'm actually showing the content. So let me put the caption in here, and the caption should be let's say title, so we see that what we have selected, and then we add another input field in here, and the input field should be related to the title of our events data relation. So whenever I click something, it will actually pop up here. So make the layout a little bit more stable. I will go for fixed sizes here, so we can actually click on something and we see the title, which is pretty nice. So we could also give this a little bit more space and take a little space from the first and the last column for the validation here, so it looks a little bit better. So we get title, and we can also add some padding, so it does not have to be a work of art here, but at least that it looks somehow a little bit better. And maybe a background color as well. So let me just put the background color to white or something, so we can actually see. So that's our detail. That's our detail form here, where we have the title, and of course we can change the title. To save the title, because nothing will happen because we have set it to on button click. It's by default. Looking at this field, it's definitely set to on button click, so we need also a submit button, which we could be here. Very important about the submit button is that it doesn't matter where you put it. The submit button submits all the data changed in your advanced data wrap container. So everything down from that base item here will be changed. Every changes that has been made in all these items will be submitted when you press submit. It's not only submitting the changes of this tiny little area. That's important to know. So system's collecting all the changes, so when you press submit, it submits it. So you don't have to care about scopes and levels, what you want to submit. So let's go to this one here and give it a test and submit that, and we see it submit its test here. If we reload, it works perfectly well. So that's a very easy way how you can build master detail forms to edit the details. And of course, I can actually add another thing here. For example, the seats. Let's take the seats. So let me take a caption and add seats. Grab another text box and link it to these seats. So we've got 8 seats. We can change that to 10 and submit that. And the next time we go to the roasting one-on-one, we will see the 10 here as well. Pretty nice. So that's how you build master detail forms. One last thing. This works pretty well for the events here, because the entire data relation, if we go to the database, does not have much columns. So we can actually load them, because we are paging anyhow, we're only loading 10 of them at a time, so we can load them. And then we load all the 10 records we want to display, and then in the detail form we show all the different things like category, title, description, whatever. And that's not too much data, so you could do that. But in some situations, like for example, you're building a system for a blog where you got a lot of text and images and things like that, you might not be able to load all the content of your data, or you don't want to load it all. You want to get your application really fast. So you want to have maybe 2 data relations. One is only for the list, and the second one is for the content. So let's just do that, and then just modify our sample a little bit to get it more optimized. Let me just go and create one data relation more, go for the event sessions here, and then let's call it event details. So that will be our data relation, which has actually all the columns in here. So let me just put everything in here so that we got the full set of data. So records per page, we actually never need more than one. But what you actually set up here does not really apply to the advanced data apps because that will be overwritten anyhow. But whatever, we can also change that so we see directly, oh, we are looking only for one record here. So in the event session itself, for that campaign now, I will actually disable everything beside the title and the ID because we don't need it. Let me save that. We need to save it, so otherwise the changes will be not populated to the server. What we see now is that we don't have seats anymore because that column is not available and not delivered. So we got actually an error here. So what we need is we need to go to we need to link up this details here with our other data relation. So what we can do is we can go from event session to event details. And now it will not work because we see all the event details. And as I mentioned to you, the records per page are ignored by the advanced data apps. So it does actually what we don't want to have. It loads all of them, the 50 which are per default, if we don't change them. So, and this is not acting at all because these are now two independent repeaters. This one is actually the event sessions and this one is the event details, and they're both loading all the events. So what we need to do is we need to actually set the condition type from same data relation, which means we use the same data that the select list uses, to from other data relation. And now we can specify a foreign key relation, which is in that case the event sessions, which actually is our selector. And we got predefined the key field, the Xmedia ID here. So when I'm clicking on one of these, now it works. Definitely lazy loaded. So this will be loaded from the server whenever I select something here, which is quite important if you work with larger data sets. And it's quite easy to do by changing the condition type to from other data relation. There's just one more thing I wanted to add here, and that would be great to see in the list which of the entries is selected. Since we know that the root selected ID contains our selected ID, we can actually make use of this. So let me go to the button here and then click on Data Controlled CSS. Data Controlled CSS is extremely versatile. That allows you to do so much stuff. You have every existing CSS property here, and you can set the value with one of these small binding expressions or small scripts. So what we can do is we can simply ask to take the color here, or let's make a border, for example, which is maybe even nicer. So let's go for border, and then we do something very simple. We ask if $root dot down here dot selected event details selected ID equals our Xmedia ID, which is available since we're inside the repeater. And if that's the case, then we will set the border to 1 pixel solid red. And if it's not the case, we simply set the border to none. Let's give it a try. So nothing is happening, which gives us a chance to have a look why this is the case, because I think I did it well. No, I actually used the wrong data relation. So I used the selected event ID from the details, which is not the case because this repeater here is actually linked to the event. So let's just go and take the right one. It's not the details, it's the event sessions selected ID, and if this equals the Xmedia ID, we go to red, otherwise to none. Made another mistake. I see that the root is double here, so let's remove one of the root. So here we go. Now we can actually, we have a red border around all the items which are selected. The single item, of course. So thanks again for listening. That was repeater part 2. See you next time.